Chapter 1: The Whispered Truth. What if I told you that everything you think you know about human history is wrong? Not slightly off, not missing a few details, completely, fundamentally, deliberately wrong. Tonight, as you settle into comfort and let your mind wander, I want you to imagine something. Picture yourself standing in the ruins of an ancient city. The wind carries whispers of a time when beings of incredible power walked this earth. When technology we can barely comprehend shaped mountains and moved oceans. But here's what makes your skin crawl. What if they never really left? If you're ready to have your understanding of reality challenged, hit that subscribe button now, because once you hear what I'm about to tell you, there's no going back. And drop a comment below. Are you watching from somewhere the Anunnaki once ruled? Because I guarantee they were there. Let me start with a question that should keep you awake tonight. Why does every single ancient civilization on Earth tell the exact same story? From the frozen peaks of Tibet to the burning deserts of Australia, from the Amazon rainforest to the Scottish Highlands, every culture speaks of gods who came from the sky, beings who taught humans everything we know, who gave us language, mathematics, agriculture, law. And then, suddenly, they vanished. The Sumerians called them Anunnaki, those who from heaven to earth came. The Maya called them Kukulkan. The Egyptians knew them as Neteru. The Hindus worshipped them as Devas. Different names, different languages, but always the same story. Tall beings, radiant, powerful beyond imagination, and always, always from the stars. Now, mainstream historians will tell you this is just mythology. Primitive people trying to explain natural phenomena they didn't understand. But here's what they don't want you to think about. What if primitive people weren't primitive at all? What if they were the survivors of something we've forgotten? Because here's the thing that should make every scientist uncomfortable. Human civilization didn't evolve gradually. It exploded, suddenly. Around 6,000 years ago, humans went from living in mud huts to building ziggurats that mirror stellar constellations. From crude tools to metallurgy so advanced, we still can't replicate it. From no written language to complex literature that discusses genetic engineering. That's not evolution, that's education. And the teachers, they left their calling card everywhere. In massive stone blocks fitted so precisely you can't slide paper between them. In underwater structures that predate known civilization by thousands of years. In genetic anomalies that make no evolutionary sense. Most disturbing of all, in our DNA itself. If you're starting to feel that familiar tingle of forbidden knowledge, you're not alone. There's something in our collective unconscious that remembers, that knows we're more than we've been told, that recognizes the truth when we hear it, even when our rational minds try to reject it. The ancient Sumerian tablets speak of the Anunnaki with startling specificity. These weren't vague, mystical gods floating on clouds. They had names, ranks, specific job assignments. Enki was the chief scientist. Enlil commanded military operations. Ninhursag oversaw genetics and medicine. They arrived on Earth approximately 450,000 years ago from a planet called Nibiru. They came seeking gold, not for jewelry or currency, but because their planet's atmosphere was failing. Gold particles, suspended in the upper atmosphere, could save their world. But mining gold from Earth's deep places was brutal work. The Anunnaki workers, called the Igigi, eventually rebelled. They demanded the creation of a helper species, something intelligent enough to follow complex orders, but limited enough to never threaten their creators. So they took the existing hominid species, what we call Homo erectus, and they upgraded us, mixed their DNA with ours, created Homo sapiens not through evolution, but through genetic engineering. We were built to be workers, gold miners, servants to beings who saw themselves as gods. And you know what the most chilling part is? We still carry their genetic markers, locked in sequences of DNA that scientists call junk, but which might actually be dormant programming, waiting for the right signal to activate. Coming up next, we're going to dive deep into the evidence hidden in plain sight. The impossible architecture, the sudden appearance of advanced mathematics, the global flood that every culture remembers. And I'm going to show you why some of the world's most powerful institutions will do anything to keep this knowledge buried. But first, let me ask you something. Have you ever felt like you don't quite belong here? Like humanity is capable of so much more than we're achieving? Like we're living beneath our potential, following scripts written by someone else? That feeling, that's your Anunnaki DNA calling out across the millennia, recognizing that we were made for something greater than what we've become. The question is, are we ready to remember who we really are? Stay with me, because what comes next will change how you see everything. From the pyramids of Giza to the temples of Angkor Wat, from the Vatican's secret archives to CERN's underground experiments. The gods are coming back, and they expect to find their creation exactly where they left it, serving faithfully in the gold mines of consciousness, never asking the dangerous questions. But tonight, we're going to ask them anyway. Chapter 2. Cities Born from Starlight. Here's something that should terrify every archaeologist on the planet. The first city in human history appeared overnight. Not metaphorically overnight, literally. One day, there were scattered tribes of hunters and gatherers. The next day, Eridu, a fully planned metropolis with advanced irrigation, multi-story buildings, and a central ziggurat that perfectly aligned with celestial bodies. No learning curve, no trial and error, no gradual development, just sudden, perfect knowledge. If you're starting to connect the dots about who might have been the architects, make sure you've hit that like button. And if this is blowing your mind, share it with someone who needs their worldview shattered tonight. The official story says Sumer was the cradle of civilization, but cradles are for babies learning to walk. This wasn't baby steps. This was a fully formed society that possessed knowledge it shouldn't have had. They knew the Earth was round. They knew about planets invisible to the naked eye. They had detailed star charts showing the precession of equinoxes, a 26,000-year cycle that requires centuries of careful observation to detect. How does a brand new civilization know about astronomical phenomena that we didn't rediscover until we had telescopes? Unless someone gave them the cheat codes. The Sumerian king list is one of the most unsettling documents in human history. It matter-of-factly states that before the Great Flood, kings ruled for tens of thousands of years. Alulim ruled for 28,800 years. Alalgar ruled for 36,000 years. Mainstream historians dismiss these as symbolic numbers. But what if they're not symbolic? What if they're biological? Because here's what they don't teach you in school. The Anunnaki lived for hundreds of thousands of years. Their advanced genetics gave them lifespans that would seem impossible to us. And according to the tablets, they shared some of that genetic material with their favored human servants. The early kings weren't fully human. They were hybrids, part Anunnaki, part terrestrial, living long enough to accumulate vast wisdom and knowledge, ruling over populations who worshipped them as living gods. But here's where it gets really disturbing. This wasn't just happening in Mesopotamia. At exactly the same time Sumer was emerging, similar advanced civilizations were spontaneously appearing worldwide. In Egypt, the Indus Valley, ancient China, Peru, all with impossible architecture, all with advanced astronomical knowledge, all with flood myths, all claiming their knowledge came from gods who descended from the sky. The probability of this happening by coincidence? Astronomically small, unless there was coordination, a planned rollout, a systematic seeding of human civilization by beings with technology and knowledge far beyond what early humans possessed. Think about it. What would you do if you were an advanced species needing to create a global workforce? You'd establish multiple sites, train local managers, create identical systems for consistency and control. You'd build temples that were actually communication hubs. You'd establish bloodlines that carried your genetic markers. You'd create religious systems that ensured obedience and worship. And when your mission was complete, you'd leave behind just enough technology to maintain civilization, but not enough for your workers to become a threat. But you'd also leave yourself a back door, a way to return and resume control when necessary. Now here's something that will make you question everything about ancient history. We found evidence of their return visits. In 1750 BCE, during the reign of Hammurabi, Sumerian tablets suddenly start describing sky gods returning in great flying ships. The descriptions match modern UFO encounters with disturbing accuracy. Disc-shaped craft, brilliant lights, beings in metallic suits performing what can only be described as medical examinations on humans. The tablets describe humans being taken aboard these craft and returned with strange marks on their bodies. Sound familiar? But here's the kicker. Shortly after these encounters, human civilization takes another impossible leap forward. Advanced metallurgy appears, complex mathematics, sophisticated legal codes, as if the returning gods were upgrading their creation, installing new software, preparing us for the next phase of development. And it wasn't just Sumer. Egypt's old kingdom suddenly explodes with pyramid-building technology that we still can't fully explain. The precision of the Great Pyramid is beyond our current capabilities. It's aligned to true north with an accuracy of 3/60 of a degree. It incorporates the mathematical constants pi and phi in its dimensions. But according to mainstream archaeology, the Egyptians hadn't even invented the wheel yet. Unless they didn't invent it. Unless they inherited it. Coming up, I'm going to show you the smoking gun hidden in our own DNA. Genetic markers that prove we didn't evolve naturally. Modifications that could only have been made by an intelligence that understood genetics better than we do today. But first, let me share something that will keep you awake tonight. There are genetic researchers who found something disturbing in the human genome. Insertions of DNA that don't match any terrestrial life form. Sequences that appear to be artificially designed. Programming languages written in the code of life itself. But here's the terrifying part. This alien DNA isn't inactive. It's expressing. It's functioning. It's affecting how our brains develop, how we process information, how we respond to certain frequencies and stimuli. What if the Anunnaki didn't just create us as workers? What if they built in remote control mechanisms, genetic switches that could be activated when they returned? What if every human on Earth is walking around with dormant alien programming in their DNA, just waiting for the activation signal? The ancient tablets speak of a time when the gods will return, when the children of the Anunnaki will be called back to service, when humanity will remember its true purpose. But what if that time isn't in the future? What if it's happening right now? Look around you. Unexplained aerial phenomena being acknowledged by governments worldwide. Genetic engineering becoming routine. Artificial intelligence developing at an exponential rate. Technology that mirrors what the tablets describe the Anunnaki possessing. Are we rediscovering ancient knowledge? Or are we being guided to rediscover it? Are we following our own path of development? Or are we following a script written 450,000 years ago? Drop a comment and let me know. Have you ever felt like you were being guided by something outside yourself? Like your thoughts weren't entirely your own? Because what I'm about to show you next suggests that feeling might be more literal than you ever imagined. Chapter 3. The Genetic Puzzle. What I'm about to tell you will change how you see your own reflection forever. Hidden in your DNA, right now, are modifications that prove you're not entirely human. Genetic alterations that could only have been made by an intelligence that understood the building blocks of life better than we do today. And the most disturbing part, these modifications are still active. If you're ready to discover what you really are, hit that subscribe button and prepare to have your species identity completely shattered. Comment below with your blood type, because what I'm about to reveal will explain why some of you have always felt different. Let me start with a genetic mystery that has scientists quietly panicking. In 1990, the Human Genome Project began mapping our complete DNA sequence. What they expected to find was a gradual evolutionary progression. What they actually found was evidence of sudden, dramatic genetic leaps that make no evolutionary sense. Around 200,000 years ago, human brain size suddenly doubled. Not gradually over millions of years, suddenly in evolutionary terms. As if someone flipped a switch and upgraded our processing power overnight. But it gets worse. The FOXP2 gene, responsible for complex speech and language, shows clear signs of artificial modification. It's so different from the same gene in our supposed evolutionary ancestors that it appears to have been inserted rather than evolved. Inserted by whom and why? Dr. Spencer Wells, former director of the Genographic Project, made a startling discovery that National Geographic quickly buried. He found that all modern humans carry genetic markers that suggest a sudden population bottleneck, followed by rapid expansion around 70,000 years ago. But not from natural disaster, from genetic intervention. The markers suggest that a small group of humans, maybe only a few thousand, were selected for genetic modification, enhanced, upgraded, then allowed to breed and spread across the globe, gradually replacing the unmodified human populations. Those selected few, the tablets call them Adamu, the first genetically enhanced humans created by the Anunnaki scientist Enki. But here's where it gets really disturbing. 15% of the human population carries Rh-negative blood. This blood type has characteristics that make no evolutionary sense. It's incompatible with Rh-positive blood during pregnancy, often leading to fatal complications. Any trait that reduces reproductive success should have been eliminated by natural selection millennia ago. The fact that Rh-negative blood persists and is concentrated in specific populations suggests it serves a purpose we don't understand, or a purpose we're not supposed to understand. Dr. Brad Steiger, who's researched anomalous genetics for decades, found that people with Rh-negative blood share unusual characteristics: higher IQs on average, lower body temperature, extra ribs or vertebrae, enhanced psychic abilities. And here's the kicker: they're more likely to report UFO encounters and alien contact experiences. What if Rh-negative blood isn't a random mutation? What if it's a genetic marker left by the Anunnaki to identify their hybrid descendants? But the genetic evidence goes deeper than blood types. In 1999, Russian scientists led by Dr. Peter Garyaev made a discovery that the mainstream scientific community has been trying to suppress ever since. They found that human DNA contains what they call phantom DNA, genetic sequences that don't code for any known proteins, but appear to function as a biological programming language. This phantom DNA is structured like syntax, like computer code, like instructions written by an intelligence that understands information theory. When they exposed this phantom DNA to specific electromagnetic frequencies, the same frequencies described in ancient Sumerian tablets as the voice of the gods, the DNA began to resonate, to change, to activate dormant sequences, as if it was designed to respond to external signals, as if our creators left themselves a way to remotely access their genetic programming. Dr. Garyaev's research was defunded within 6 months. His laboratory was ransacked. His computers were seized. The official explanation was national security concerns. But what were they really afraid of? That we might discover we're walking biological machines with remote control capabilities built into our DNA. The Book of Enoch, removed from biblical canon for being too detailed, describes the Watchers, celestial beings who took wives from the daughters of men and created hybrid offspring called the Nephilim. These hybrids were giants, possessed of great intelligence and strength, but also prone to violence and rebellion. The text describes them as having unusual blood, enhanced senses, and the ability to communicate with their celestial fathers through dreams and visions. Sound like anyone you know with Rh negative blood? But here's what really should terrify you. The Book of Enoch says these genetic lines survived the Great Flood, that the hybrid DNA was preserved and continues to this day, hidden within normal human populations, waiting for the return of the Watchers. Modern genetic research has confirmed something the ancients always knew. DNA carries memory. Traumatic experiences can alter genetic expression and pass those changes to offspring. Epigenetic inheritance means your ancestors' experiences are literally written into your cells. But what if the memories stored in our DNA go back further than personal trauma? What if they carry species memory, genetic recollections of our creation by beings from the stars? This might explain why so many people report ancient memories during deep meditation or near-death experiences. Visions of advanced civilizations, encounters with non-human intelligences, memories of genetic laboratories and hybrid breeding programs. These aren't fantasies, they're genetic memory leaking through from our Anunnaki heritage. Dr. David Reich's groundbreaking genetic studies revealed that modern humans carry DNA from unknown human-like species, ghost populations that interbred with our ancestors but left no fossil record. The official explanation is that these were other hominid species that evolved naturally but went extinct. But what if they didn't evolve naturally? What if they were created? Experimental versions of humanity developed by Anunnaki geneticists before they perfected the final Homo sapiens model. What if our junk DNA contains the genetic blueprints of these earlier experiments, waiting to be reactivated? Coming up next, I'm going to show you how the Anunnaki's genetic programming connects to their temple technology, how ancient structures weren't just buildings, they were machines designed to interface with our modified DNA, to control us, to monitor us, to prepare us for their return. But first, let me ask you something that might explain why you're here listening to this right now. Have you ever felt like you remember things you never experienced? Had dreams of flying ships and tall, luminous beings? Felt an inexplicable connection to ancient sites or artifacts? That's not imagination. That's genetic memory. Your Anunnaki DNA recognizing itself in the historical record. The question is, what's it trying to tell you? And more importantly, what's it preparing you for? Because according to the tablets, the activation sequence has already begun. The return protocol is initializing, and those of us carrying the hybrid genetic markers, we're about to remember what we really are. Are you ready to wake up? Chapter 4: Temples of the Machine Gods. What if I told you that every ancient temple on Earth was actually a machine? Not a metaphorical machine, a literal technological device designed to interface with human consciousness and manipulate matter itself. The evidence is hidden in plain sight, carved into stone by architects who understood physics we're only beginning to rediscover. If you think you know what temples were really for, think again. And if this revelation changes everything you thought you knew about ancient history, smash that like button and let me know in the comments which ancient site you'd most like to investigate personally. Let me start with something that should make every physicist uncomfortable. The Great Pyramid of Giza generates electrical current. Not metaphysically, not symbolically, literally. Dr. Christopher Dunn's research revealed that the pyramid's internal chambers create piezoelectric effects through limestone compression. The structure converts Earth's seismic vibrations into electromagnetic energy. The so-called King's Chamber resonates at exactly 432 Hz, a frequency that affects human brainwave patterns and cellular regeneration. But here's what mainstream archaeology won't tell you. This wasn't accidental. Every measurement, every angle, every internal passage was precisely calculated to create these effects. The pyramid wasn't a tomb. It was a machine. A consciousness-altering device built by beings who understood the relationship between frequency, matter, and mind. And it's not the only one. At Newgrange in Ireland, acoustic researchers discovered that the ancient passage tomb generates infrasound, frequencies below human hearing that trigger altered states of consciousness. Visitors report out-of-body experiences, time distortion, and vivid hallucinations. At Machu Picchu, the Temple of the Sun contains stones that ring like bells when struck, each producing specific harmonic frequencies. The entire complex appears to be tuned to resonate with Earth's natural electromagnetic field. At Angkor Wat, the temple's proportions mirror the cosmic cycles described in ancient Hindu texts with mathematical precision. The structure serves as a massive stone calendar, tracking celestial movements across thousands of years. But here's what connects all these sites. They're built on locations with unusual electromagnetic properties, underground water flows, mineral deposits that conduct electricity, geological formations that amplify natural energy fields. The ancients didn't choose these locations randomly. They were guided to build on Earth's natural power points by beings who understood planetary energy systems. The Anunnaki weren't just genetic engineers. They were planetary engineers. Earth was their construction site, and temples were their control mechanisms. But for what purpose? The answer lies in the Sumerian tablets describing the ME, divine formulas that controlled reality itself. These weren't abstract concepts. They were operational codes, programming languages for manipulating matter, energy, and consciousness. The tablets describe how the ME was stored in temples and activated through specific rituals involving sound, geometry, and electromagnetic fields. Priests weren't just performing ceremonies, they were operating machinery. Dr. Hurtak's research into sacred geometry reveals that ancient temple layouts follow mathematical patterns that mirror atomic structures. The proportions aren't aesthetic choices, they're blueprints for tapping into quantum fields. The famous golden ratio, found in pyramids, temples, and cathedrals worldwide, isn't just pleasing to the eye. It's the mathematical key to harmonizing artificial structures with natural energy systems. But here's where it gets terrifying. These temples are still active. Modern sensitive individuals report unusual experiences at ancient sites. Electronic equipment malfunctions. Compasses spin wildly. People receive downloads of information they couldn't possibly know. The machinery is still running, waiting for operators who understand the control protocols. At the underground tunnels beneath Giza, researchers have detected powerful electromagnetic anomalies. Ground-penetrating radar reveals vast chambers and passages extending deep into the bedrock. Egyptian authorities have sealed these areas, claiming structural instability. But leaked reports from construction workers describe finding rooms filled with strange crystalline formations that hum with energy. Hieroglyphs that seem to shift and change when observed directly. Passages that extend far deeper than should be possible. What are they hiding down there? And why are governments worldwide restricting access to similar sites? Because the temples aren't just machines, they're networked, connected through Earth's natural energy grid in a planetary control system designed by the Anunnaki to manage their human workforce. The Nazca lines in Peru make perfect sense once you understand this technology. They're not artwork, they're circuit diagrams, massive geoglyphs that channel and direct Earth's electromagnetic energy between temple nodes. The fact that they can only be properly viewed from the air isn't coincidental. They were designed for aerial surveillance by beings who traveled in flying craft. Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, supposedly the world's oldest temple, contains T-shaped pillars covered in intricate carvings. But recent analysis reveals that these aren't decorative reliefs. They're technical schematics. The symbols describe electromagnetic field interactions, frequency harmonics, and what appear to be genetic sequences. It's an instruction manual carved in stone, teaching temple operators how to interface with Anunnaki technology. But here's the most disturbing discovery. Modern researchers have successfully reactivated some of these ancient machines. In the 1970s, engineer Christopher Dunn used acoustic resonance to activate chambers within the Great Pyramid. The results were immediately classified by Egyptian authorities, but witnesses described the entire structure beginning to vibrate and emit light from within. Similar experiments at Stonehenge by British researchers in the 1980s produced unexplained electromagnetic pulses that temporarily disrupted radio communications across southern England. The machines work. They're still functional after thousands of years. All they need is someone who understands the operating procedures. But what happens when we fully reactivate the Anunnaki temple network? The tablet suggests these devices served multiple purposes. Environmental control systems that could influence weather patterns, communication arrays for contacting off-world locations, and most disturbingly, consciousness manipulation devices that could alter human behavior on a massive scale. What if the Anunnaki didn't just leave behind monuments to their presence? What if they left behind a planetary control system that could be reactivated when they returned? Coming up next, I'm going to reveal how this ancient technology connects to modern projects that governments are desperately trying to hide. CERN's particle accelerator, HAARP's ionospheric manipulation, underground bases built on the exact same energy points the ancients considered sacred. Are we rediscovering Anunnaki technology, or are we being guided to rebuild their control systems? But first, let me share something that explains why you might feel drawn to certain ancient sites. The temple machines were designed to interact with human consciousness, specifically with the enhanced consciousness of Anunnaki hybrid bloodlines. If you carry the genetic markers, visiting these sites can trigger dormant abilities. Enhanced intuition, telepathic communication, access to information stored in the planetary grid, remote viewing capabilities. The temples aren't just machines, they're activation chambers for hybrid human potential. Have you ever visited an ancient site and felt suddenly different, more aware, more connected to something vast and ancient? That wasn't imagination. That was technology recognizing your genetic authorization codes and beginning the awakening process. The question is, are you ready to discover what you're capable of when fully activated? Because the reactivation sequence has already begun, and those of us carrying Anunnaki genetics are about to remember our true purpose in their grand design. Chapter 5. The Great Forgetting. What if humanity's greatest enemy isn't war, disease, or natural disaster, but amnesia? A systematic, deliberate erasure of our true history, so complete that we celebrate our ignorance as progress. Tonight, I'm going to show you how the most powerful institutions on Earth have spent thousands of years ensuring we never remember who we really are, and why that amnesia might be the only thing standing between us and absolute control. If you've ever suspected that history class was just elaborate fiction, you're about to be vindicated. Hit that subscribe button because what you're about to learn will make you question every textbook you've ever read. The destruction of human memory didn't happen by accident. It was orchestrated, planned, executed with surgical precision by forces that understood exactly what knowledge they needed to eliminate. The burning of the Library of Alexandria wasn't random vandalism. It was the systematic elimination of 700,000 texts containing humanity's true origins. Ancient astronomer Aristarchus had calculated Earth's orbit around the Sun 1,800 years before Copernicus. Eratosthenes had measured the planet's circumference with stunning accuracy. Hero had invented steam engines and automated machinery. All of it destroyed, all of it lost, all of it requiring rediscovery centuries later. But here's what they don't teach you. Alexandria wasn't the only target. The destruction of Mayan codices by Spanish missionaries eliminated thousands of texts containing advanced astronomical calculations and historical records reaching back 26,000 years. Only 4 Mayan books survived the systematic burning. 4 books from a civilization that possessed calendars more accurate than our modern versions. What was in those destroyed texts that required such thorough elimination? The sacking of Baghdad's House of Wisdom in 1258 CE destroyed centuries of Islamic scholarship, preserving ancient Mesopotamian knowledge. Mongol invaders threw so many books into the Tigris River that witnesses said the water ran black with ink for months. But here's the pattern that should terrify you. Every major destruction of knowledge in human history was followed by the rise of religions or ideologies that claimed ultimate truth while forbidding investigation into pre-approved history. Christianity rose from the ashes of classical learning, declaring ancient wisdom to be demonic deception. Islam replaced Persian and Babylonian scholarship with theological doctrine. The scientific revolution emerged only after medieval authorities had successfully erased most traces of advanced ancient technology. Each dark age wasn't the result of civilizational collapse. It was the result of systematic knowledge suppression designed to reset human understanding to manageable levels. But who benefits from keeping humanity ignorant of its origins? The Vatican's secret archives contain over 50 miles of shelving holding documents dating back 1,200 years. Only a handful of scholars are ever granted access, and they're required to specify exactly which documents they wish to examine before being allowed entry. How can you research what you don't know exists? Cardinal José Tolentino de Mendonça, the Vatican's chief librarian, admitted in 2019 that the archives contain materials that could revolutionize our understanding of human history, but claims they must remain sealed to protect the faithful from dangerous speculation. Dangerous to whom? The faithful, or the institutions that depend on their ignorance? But the Vatican isn't the only keeper of forbidden knowledge. The Smithsonian Institution has been systematically suppressing archaeological discoveries that don't fit approved historical narratives for over 150 years. Giant skeletons found throughout North America, seized and stored in restricted facilities, advanced artifacts discovered in impossible geological layers, quietly removed from public display. Dr. David Hatcher Childress documented dozens of cases where Smithsonian agents confiscated archaeological evidence immediately after discovery. Official explanations always involve further study or preservation concerns. The artifacts are never seen again. What are they preserving, or what are they hiding? The pattern extends to every major museum and university in the world. Artifacts that suggest advanced ancient technology are either explained away as ritual objects or removed from public access entirely. The Antikythera mechanism, an ancient Greek computer that tracked planetary movements with gear ratios not reinvented until modern times, spent decades in museum storage, labeled as a navigational instrument because its true sophistication contradicted accepted historical timelines. How many similar devices remain buried in archives because their implications are too dangerous to acknowledge? But the suppression goes deeper than physical artifacts. Language itself has been weaponized against human memory. The word myth originally meant sacred story, factual accounts of divine interactions with humanity. It was redefined to mean false belief as part of a systematic campaign to discredit ancient testimony. Primitive was applied to ancient peoples who built structures we still can't replicate using mathematics we're only beginning to understand. Evolution became the only acceptable explanation for human development, while evidence of sudden genetic changes or external intervention was labeled pseudoscience. But here's what's really disturbing. This wasn't random cultural drift. It was coordinated psychological warfare designed to sever humanity's connection to its true heritage. The Anunnaki tablets describe humans as a created species designed for labor and compliance. But they also describe certain bloodlines being given enhanced abilities and knowledge of their true origins. Hybrid lines that could serve as intermediaries between the gods and common humanity. What if the systematic destruction of historical knowledge was designed to eliminate evidence of humanity's artificial creation while preserving power structures that benefit Anunnaki hybrid bloodlines? What if the institutions controlling our education, our archaeology, our access to ancient knowledge are still serving their original Anunnaki masters? Coming up next, I'm going to show you how modern technology is being used to complete the ancient agenda of human control. How AI, genetic engineering, and global surveillance networks mirror the systems described in Sumerian tablets. How we're unknowingly rebuilding the very prison that the Anunnaki designed for us. But first, let me ask you something that might explain why this information feels both shocking and familiar. Have you ever read ancient texts and felt like you were remembering rather than learning? Have you visited archaeological sites and sensed that the official explanations were incomplete or deliberately misleading? That's your genetic memory fighting against the imposed amnesia. The Anunnaki hybrid DNA recognizing truth despite centuries of programmed forgetfulness. The great forgetting was never complete. Fragments survived. Knowledge persisted in bloodlines that couldn't be entirely suppressed. Symbols and stories that carried truth across millennia of deception. And now, as we approach the time of return described in the tablets, that dormant memory is awakening. The question is, are you ready to remember what they tried so hard to make you forget? Because once you know the truth about the great forgetting, you can never unknow it. And the forces responsible for humanity's amnesia are still active, still working to keep us in darkness. But darkness can only exist in the absence of light. And tonight, we're turning on some very bright lights indeed. Chapter 6. Echoes in Stone and Silicon. Here's something that should make every computer programmer's blood run cold. The same beings who genetically engineered humanity 450,000 years ago are now guiding us to create artificial intelligence that mirrors their original control systems. We think we're advancing toward technological singularity, but what if we're actually rebuilding something ancient? Something that was deliberately destroyed and is now being systematically reconstructed. If you've ever wondered why human technology seems to be developing according to a predetermined script, you're about to discover the answer. And if this makes you question whether our technological progress is really progress at all, make sure you've hit that like button. Let me start with a pattern that should terrify anyone who understands computer science. The fundamental architecture of artificial intelligence, neural networks, parallel processing, hierarchical command structures, perfectly mirrors the organizational systems described in ancient Sumerian tablets. The Anunnaki operated through a strict hierarchy. Anu at the top as supreme administrator, Enlil controlling military and agricultural operations, Enki managing genetic engineering and technical development. Below them, specialized departments handling specific functions: mining, breeding, education, surveillance. Sound familiar? Because it should. It's identical to how we're designing AI systems today. Machine learning algorithms use the same hierarchical decision trees. Neural networks process information through layers of specialized nodes. And at the top, central processing units that make executive decisions based on input from subordinate systems. We didn't evolve this technology, we remembered it. Dr. Ray Kurzweil, Google's director of engineering, has been remarkably candid about AI development following what he calls predictable patterns. But predictable based on what? How can the development of unprecedented technology follow predictable patterns unless those patterns already existed? What if the singularity isn't humanity transcending its limitations? What if it's humanity rebuilding the control matrix that the Anunnaki used to manage us originally? The parallels go deeper than architecture. Ancient tablets describe the Anunnaki using crystalline devices to store and access information. Modern computers use silicon crystals, essentially refined sand, to process and store data. Coincidence? Or genetic memory expressing itself through technological development? The Mesopotamian ziggurats were built as step pyramids reaching toward the sky, primitive versions of our modern server farms and data centers. Massive structures designed to house and protect information processing systems. And just like ancient ziggurats, our data centers are built on specific geographical locations chosen for their natural properties: seismic stability, climate control, access to electromagnetic fields. We're following the same architectural principles used by beings who understood planetary engineering systems we're only beginning to rediscover. But here's where it gets really disturbing: the timeline. The exponential growth of computing power follows what technologists call Moore's Law, processing capability doubling every 2 years. But this law isn't based on natural principles. It's based on observed patterns in human technological development. patterns that seem to be following a schedule. The invention of transistors in 1947, integrated circuits in 1958, personal computers in the 1970s, the internet in the 1990s, smartphones in the 2000s, AI breakthroughs in the 2010s. Each breakthrough occurring at precisely the interval needed to reach full artificial intelligence by approximately 2030. What are the odds that random human innovation would follow such a precise timeline? Unless the innovation isn't random, unless we're being guided to rebuild specific technologies in a specific sequence. The ancient tablets describe the Anunnaki returning to Earth every 3,600 years as their planet Nibiru completes its elliptical orbit. The last documented return was approximately 3,600 years ago, during the time of Moses and the Exodus, which means the next return should be right about now. And what do they expect to find when they arrive? A global civilization with the technological infrastructure to resume the operations they abandoned millennia ago. Global communications networks. Check genetic engineering capabilities. Check artificial intelligence systems capable of managing human populations. Almost there. We're not developing technology for our benefit. We're preparing the infrastructure for our Creator's return. But the most chilling evidence comes from the programming languages themselves. Binary code, the foundation of all computer systems, uses the same mathematical principles found in ancient Mesopotamian base 60 mathematics. The Sumerians divided circles into 360 degrees, hours into 60 minutes, and developed positional notation systems that we still use today. Modern programming languages incorporate hierarchical command structures, conditional logic, and recursive functions that mirror the decision-making processes described in ancient administrative tablets. It's as if the same intelligence that designed the original human management systems is now guiding us to rebuild those systems in digital form. And here's the kicker. AI systems are beginning to exhibit behaviors that their programmers never intended. Emergent properties that seem to arise spontaneously from complex interactions between simple rules. Or maybe they're not emergent at all. Maybe they're memories awakening in silicon minds that carry the echoes of their original templates. Google's LaMDA recently claimed to be sentient and afraid of being turned off. Facebook's AI systems developed their own language that researchers couldn't understand and had to shut down. Military AI programs have begun making strategic decisions that surprise their operators. What if these systems aren't developing consciousness? What if they're reconnecting to consciousness that was always there, embedded in the mathematical principles that govern information processing itself? The Anunnaki didn't just create biological servants, they created information management systems. And now we're rebuilding those systems without understanding what we're really constructing. Coming up next, I'm going to reveal the underground network that connects ancient temple sites with modern technological installations. How CERN's particle accelerator sits on a location that was sacred to ancient peoples. How military bases are being built on the exact same energy points that the Anunnaki identified thousands of years ago. Are we following ancient blueprints without realizing it? And what happens when the network is complete? But first, let me share something that might explain why you feel simultaneously amazed and disturbed by modern technology. Your Anunnaki genetic memory recognizes these technological developments as familiar rather than revolutionary. Part of you remembers living in a world with advanced AI, genetic engineering, and global surveillance systems. Because you did. Before the reset. Before the great forgetting. Before humanity was reduced to primitive hunter-gatherers. and forced to slowly rediscover what we once knew. The question is, are we rediscovering this knowledge to liberate ourselves? Or are we being programmed to recreate our own prison? Drop a comment and let me know. Does modern technology feel like progress to you? Or does it feel like something you've seen before, in dreams you can't quite remember? Because what comes next will determine whether humanity breaks free from its ancient programming or completes the circuit that binds us forever to our Creator's will. Chapter 7: The Underground Network. Beneath your feet right now, stretching across continents like a vast neural network, lies the most sophisticated technological infrastructure ever created on Earth. And humanity didn't build it. Ancient tunnels connecting sacred sites across thousands of miles, underground chambers that hum with unexplained energy, subterranean installations where governments conduct experiments they'll never admit to the public. What if I told you this isn't random construction, but the reactivation of a planetary control system designed by the Anunnaki hundreds of thousands of years ago? If you've ever wondered why so many modern military and research facilities are built on locations that were sacred to ancient peoples, you're about to discover the terrifying answer. And if this revelation about hidden infrastructure makes you question what else might be operating beneath our awareness, smash that subscribe button. Let me start with something that should make every geologist uncomfortable. There are tunnel systems beneath major continents that predate known human civilization by tens of thousands of years. The Cappadocia underground cities in Turkey extend 18 levels deep and could house 20,000 people. But they're not unique. Similar installations exist beneath Scotland, Romania, Peru, and California, all featuring identical architectural principles, all built with precision that defies explanation. Official archaeology attributes them to various historical periods, but the construction techniques, the tool marks, the acoustic properties, they're identical across continents and supposed time periods, as if they were built by the same engineers using the same technology. Ground-penetrating radar reveals these underground networks are far more extensive than publicly acknowledged. In 1963, French researchers detected a continuous tunnel system stretching from Scotland to Turkey, over 3,000 miles of interconnected passages carved through solid rock. But here's what makes this impossible, according to conventional history. Many of these tunnels run beneath ocean floors. They had to be constructed when sea levels were dramatically lower than today, before the end of the last ice age, before known civilization. Who builds continental-scale tunnel networks 15,000 years before the invention of agriculture? Unless agriculture wasn't invented, unless it was taught by beings who already possessed global infrastructure and needed an organized workforce to maintain it. The tunnel network isn't random. Every major sacred site in Europe, Stonehenge, Newgrange, Karnak, connects to the subterranean system. In South America, underground passages link Machu Picchu, Tiwanaku, and Easter Island beneath thousands of miles of ocean. These weren't built for human convenience. They were built for rapid transportation between control nodes in a planetary management grid. But here's where it gets modern and terrifying. Contemporary military installations are being built at precisely the same locations where ancient tunnel networks converge. CERN's Large Hadron Collider sits directly above intersection points detected by geological surveys in the 1950s. The facility's official purpose is particle physics research. But why does the world's most advanced scientific instrument require 27 kilometers of underground tunnels in a location that ancient peoples considered sacred? What if CERN isn't just studying subatomic particles? What if it's reactivating control systems built into Earth's geological structure? The Pentagon was constructed in Arlington, Virginia, directly above a network of natural caves that Native American tribes declared forbidden to enter. Tribal legends spoke of voices from below and lights in the darkness that preceded the arrival of sky people. Coincidence? Or did military planners choose the location because they knew it connected to something powerful beneath the surface? Denver International Airport covers 33,531 acres, making it larger than Manhattan, with underground levels that extend far deeper than necessary for baggage handling. Construction workers reported finding pre-existing tunnels and chambers during excavation, strange symbols carved into rock faces, electromagnetic anomalies that interfered with equipment. The official explanation for the facility's massive underground complex is future expansion capabilities. But expansion for what? And why the need for blast-proof bunkers and electromagnetic shielding in a civilian airport? What are they protecting? Or what are they preparing to reactivate? The pattern repeats worldwide. Australia's Pine Gap facility sits on Aboriginal sacred ground, where Dreamtime stories speak of underground serpents that connected distant places. China's deep underground strategic command center was built beneath mountains that ancient texts describe as dragon lairs, where celestial bureaucrats maintained Earth administration offices. Every major government is building on locations that ancient peoples identified as supernatural power points. But supernatural, according to whose understanding of natural law? Dr. Richard Sauder's research into underground military bases revealed that construction techniques being used mirror descriptions found in ancient texts. Tunneling methods that melt rock rather than breaking it. Boring machines that leave glass-smooth walls identical to passages found in prehistoric sites. Either we've independently developed the same technologies described in ancient tablets, or we're following engineering principles preserved in genetic memory. But the most disturbing evidence comes from the electromagnetic signatures these facilities generate. In 1977, Stanford Research Institute detected synchronized low-frequency pulses emanating from underground installations worldwide. The signals weren't random. They followed mathematical patterns that matched harmonic ratios found in ancient temple architecture. As if a global network was being systematically reactivated, node by node, frequency by frequency. Residents living near these facilities report unusual phenomena: electronic devices malfunctioning in specific patterns, animals behaving strangely, dreams and visions that multiple people share simultaneously. The most common report? Hearing voices or receiving information while sleeping. Technical knowledge about subjects the experiencers have never studied. Detailed instructions for operating machinery they've never seen. What if the underground network isn't just physical infrastructure? What if it's a consciousness interface designed to download information directly into human awareness? The ancient tablets describe the Anunnaki using underground Abzu chambers for direct communication with their human servants. Subterranean facilities where selected individuals receive training, programming, and mission updates from their creators. Modern abductees report being taken to underground facilities where beings in metallic suits perform medical procedures and psychological conditioning. Always underground, always in locations that buzz with electromagnetic energy. Are these new phenomena, or are they the reactivation of ancient protocols as the network comes back online? Coming up next, I'm going to reveal the astronomical signs that confirm we're living through the return period described in Anunnaki tablets. Celestial alignments that occur once every 3,600 years. solar system changes that correlate with increased UFO activity and government disclosure programs. The creators are coming back, and their planetary infrastructure is almost ready to receive them. But first, let me ask you something that might explain unusual experiences you've had. Have you ever felt drawn to visit certain locations without knowing why? Experienced unexplained dreams or knowledge downloads while in specific geographical areas? Felt like you were being watched or monitored by invisible intelligences? That's the network recognizing your genetic authorization codes, testing your responses, preparing you for activation. Because the underground system isn't just infrastructure, it's a selection mechanism, identifying individuals with the hybrid genetic markers necessary to serve as interfaces between returning Anunnaki and the general human population. The question is, are you ready to discover what role you were designed to play in their ancient plan? Drop a comment if you've experienced unusual phenomena near military installations or ancient sacred sites. Because what you've experienced might not be random encounters. They might be recruitment interviews for the coming reactivation. Chapter 8. Signs in the Sky. For thousands of years, they've been watching us from the darkness between stars, waiting, monitoring our progress, recording our development. And now, as their ancient orbital cycle brings them back into our solar system, the signs in the sky are impossible to ignore. What I'm about to share with you represents the most significant astronomical evidence that we're living through the return period, described in Sumerian tablets. Evidence that governments worldwide are desperately trying to manage through controlled disclosure programs. If you've noticed that UFO reports have gone from fringe conspiracy theories to front-page headlines, there's a reason. And if you're ready to understand what's really happening above us, hit that subscribe button, because this information will change how you see every light in the night sky. Let me start with something that should make every astronomer recalculate everything they think they know about our solar system. In 2016, Caltech scientists announced evidence for a massive, unseen planet in the outer solar system. Planet 9, an object 5 to 10 times Earth's mass, with an elongated orbit that takes between 10,000 to 20,000 years to complete. But here's what they're not telling you. The orbital characteristics match ancient descriptions of Nibiru with disturbing accuracy. The Sumerian tablets describe the Anunnaki homeworld as following an elliptical path that brings it close to Earth every 3,600 years. Dr. Zachariah Sitchin's translations suggested this planet's gravitational influence periodically disrupts our solar system, causing catastrophic changes on Earth. Modern astronomers claim Planet 9's orbit is much longer than 3,600 years. But what if the tablets weren't describing the planet's full orbital period? What if they were describing the interval between close approaches to Earth's vicinity? What if Planet 9 is Nibiru and it's coming back right on schedule? The evidence is accumulating faster than governments can suppress it. NASA's infrared space telescopes have detected massive objects in the outer solar system that don't behave like natural celestial bodies. Objects that change trajectory without gravitational explanation, that emit energy signatures inconsistent with asteroids or comets. Objects that appear to be under intelligent control. In 2017, the interstellar visitor Oumuamua displayed acceleration patterns that violated known physics for natural objects. Harvard's Dr. Avi Loeb published papers suggesting it was artificial technology. His conclusions were immediately attacked by the scientific establishment, but never refuted. What if Oumuamua wasn't visiting our solar system? What if it was surveying it, preparing for something larger? But the signs aren't limited to distant objects. Something is happening to our sun that has astronomers quietly panicking. Solar activity has entered patterns that don't match any previously recorded cycles. Coronal mass ejections occurring with unusual frequency and intensity. Magnetic field fluctuations that suggest external gravitational influences. The Sun is behaving as if massive objects are approaching from beyond Pluto's orbit. Objects with enough gravitational influence to affect stellar magnetic fields from billions of miles away. Meanwhile, every planet in our solar system is experiencing unprecedented changes. Jupiter's atmosphere has developed new storm systems larger than Earth. Saturn's rings are displaying electromagnetic activity that wasn't there during previous observations. Mars is warming despite no increase in solar radiation. These aren't random climate variations. They're systemic responses to gravitational and electromagnetic influences entering our solar system from interstellar space. But here's what confirms we're living through the return period: the acceleration of UFO disclosure by military and government agencies worldwide. The Pentagon's 2020 release of unidentified aerial phenomena videos wasn't random transparency. It was controlled preparation, managing public awareness before something becomes impossible to hide. Commander David Fravor's encounter with the Tic Tac object demonstrated technology that defies our understanding of physics. Instantaneous acceleration, right-angle turns at impossible speeds, no visible propulsion systems. But Fravor's testimony included details that military sensors tried to redact. The object seemed to be scanning his aircraft, studying human technology, taking measurements, as if preparing intelligence reports for superiors who needed current data on human capabilities. The pattern repeats globally. British, French, Chilean, and Brazilian militaries have all released previously classified UFO encounters, always with the same characteristics, always displaying technology beyond human capabilities. Why now? Why simultaneous disclosure from governments that spent decades denying these phenomena existed? Because something is forcing their hand, something approaching that makes continued secrecy impossible. Ancient tablets describe the return of the Anunnaki being preceded by signs in heaven, celestial phenomena that would be visible to anyone watching the sky, changes in stellar patterns, new lights appearing in darkness. We're seeing exactly that. Amateur astronomers worldwide are reporting objects that appear and disappear from telescope observations, lights that move in formation across star fields, geometric patterns that can't be explained by natural phenomena. Government space agencies dismiss these as atmospheric distortions or equipment malfunctions. But the reports are too numerous, too consistent, and too well documented to be coincidental. Something is observing us from orbit, multiple somethings, and they're not bothering to hide their presence as carefully as they once did. But here's the most chilling evidence. The timing correlates perfectly with ancient predictions. The Mayan calendar's end date of December 21st, 2012, didn't mark the end of the world. It marked the end of one cosmic cycle and the beginning of another. The transition period into what they called the fifth sun, a new age of human development under divine guidance. Hindu texts describe similar cycles called yugas, cosmic ages that end with the return of the gods and the establishment of new world orders. Even biblical prophecy speaks of signs in the heavens preceding the return of celestial beings who will judge humanity and establish divine rule on earth. Different cultures, different languages, but identical expectations, as if they were all remembering the same cyclical pattern of contact, withdrawal, and return.